Okay, I thought I went live and I started talking and ranting and going on, and then I just realized that I wasn't even live. Such a rookie. Anyway, I just thought I'd do a live stream because I'm sick of editing videos and I want to do something different. So I thought I'd live stream. So I was laying in bed last night, watching YouTube video, as I usually do, YouTube videos. I come across this video about 20 years in the future and all the things that could potentially happen. The video was called Life in 20 Years, My 2044 Predictions, AGI, Fusion, Biotech, Quantum, Milestones, and Impacts. And I was just like, whoa, what the hell am I doing with my life? Will my job be obsolete in 20 years? And what's life going to look like? So, and then I just thought, I'm not going to waste time editing tomorrow night. I think I'll just do a live stream because I'm sick of editing. Even if I get no views, I don't care. Whatever. Anyway, this video is from Dave Shapiro. So, without further ado, let's just watch it. And I'll give you my thoughts on it. My uneducated input onto his thoughts and predictions. So enjoy. And if you enjoy this video, go watch it. Or just watch it here now with me.
Obviously, the longer the time horizon, the harder it is to predict. But there's a few keystone technologies that I think are going to arise, and there are some predictable impacts that those are going to have. So this is my best case scenario over the next 20 years of some keystone technologies and the impacts that they will have.
So you just have to note that he's saying best case scenarios. So I don't know what the worst case scenarios look like, but I'm guessing they can be pretty damn devastating. Don't know.
So to outline kind of the parameters of this thought experiment, first, keep in mind that this is just my personal predictions. I'm not a betting man, so I'm not really putting any money on this. But I think I'll put together a pretty compelling argument. It is also a best case scenario, so it's not guaranteed by a long shot, but I do think that it's somewhat likely. Now, obviously, the future is kind of a distribution. It could be maximally good, maximally bad, and it might be somewhere in between. But based on some of the polls that I've run, people kind of expect a bimodal outcome where it will either be really good or really bad, and there won't be much gray area, which I tend to kind of agree with. But you never know. We might end up in kind of that middle gray area.
I don't get how they come to that conclusion that it's either going to be best case scenario or worst case scenario. I'm sure there's some sort of theory, but you would think the most likely outcome would be to end up in that grey area between the best and the worst outcome. That's what I would think, but I'm guessing smarter people have a different thought on this whole how the future will turn out.
Time will tell. So let's get right into it. So first and foremost, over the next 20 years, it's pretty much guaranteed AGI will arrive. Now, obviously, there's some disagreement. Some people, say like it's not happening in 2024, maybe 2025, 2026. For those of us with their fingers on the pulse, especially when you look at the studies that show like all the experts are kind of their predictions are exponentially decaying, and so you look at the exponential decay of those predictions versus the advance of time. Looks like 2026 now. But again, with the nature of exponentials, things happen sooner rather than later.
So I think what he's talking about with the exponential decay of people's theories in terms of their time frames is that their time frames are decaying and reducing, where the exponential increase of things that are happening that are meeting time frames a lot sooner. That's how I take what he's talking about, if that makes sense.
But what is this going to do? So first, it's going to be AGI very quickly gives way to ASI. or whatever. And if you follow Connor Leahy on Twitter, like he's kind of moved to the camp of there really is no difference between AGI and ASI. Like once you solve all the problems of intelligence, you already automatically have ASI, which I'm kind of in favor of that because, and it's really nothing beyond moving the goalposts. Because as some of you out there have pointed out, like if you were to put ChatGPT in its current form in front of anyone 10 years ago, they would have said, yeah, that's AGI. It can do pretty much any task that you give it. It fails at some, but it knows more than any single person, and it can do tasks that most people can't do. It can write computer code in any language, and do all kinds of plans and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, is the fact that we constantly move the goalpost in terms of what we expect of AGI to be, or what we expect of things in general to be. Where if you brought the stuff that we have these days and took it back 10 years or 20 years, people would say that is that thing, where these days we wouldn't give it that higher status of being something, because we just expect more and more as we move through time.
Anyways, in hindsight being 2020, in 20 years, we can continue having this debate. Was there a boundary between AGI and ASI? Did GPT-4 qualify as AGI? Maybe Llama 3 or GPT-5? Who knows? But...
So I think this video came out before the announcement that Gemini has now surpassed ChatGPT. So that's an interesting thing that's happened. A new player to the game, and which is going to help increase the progress to artificial general intelligence.
The idea here is that it will drive unparalleled economic progress. And we'll talk about this quite a bit, but one of the biggest things is like, okay, it'll lower the cost of goods and services. That's a good thing. It'll take our jobs. That's a bad thing. And so in this respect, it will force a transformation of society, both in terms of politics and economics, as well as social changes, which I'll also talk about. My next prediction is that we will have commercial fusion within the next 20 years. There's a lot of private startups that are working on this. There's also a lot of governments and intergovernmental research projects. Now, of course, the joke is that fusion is always 20 years away. However, one of the things that I pay attention to, and the way that fusion is being treated right now in terms of in the capital markets and in the VC firms, so VC is venture capital, is fusion is being treated right now the way that AI was being treated, kind of the way, circa 2015 when OpenAI was founded, and the way that solar was treated around 2010.
So I think fusion is going to be, it's going to be a massive thing when they actually come out with it. It's going to change a lot of things. Having that type of energy, like you just move away from, and even industries as well. You just move away from all those industries, fossil fuels, and even things like solar power. Like, I don't know how for big companies, they're not even going to think about that sort of stuff when you have cold fusion, or you have fusion in general. That's going to be crazy.
And so when you have this massive surge of investment, typically results follow. Some people have been talking about VR. There was a huge investment of VR with the Oculus Rift, the original Oculus Rift, which Meta bought, and now they're, Meta Quest 3, commercially successful. Now Apple has entered with a commercially successful VR headset. They're not perfect, but at the same time, you have a standalone headset that can orient you in time and space and also track your hands. Like, that is a pretty miraculous technology. So again, that pattern follows. Longevity research, for instance, is also something that is getting that same kind of treatment, where the investment is doubling almost every year, last I checked.
And that's another thing as well. If you have longevity, a lot of stuff going into longevity research, if you're able to extend the life of humans, then you're extending the experiences and the knowledge, and that just increases your exponential growth of things progressing even quicker, even faster. So it's like, all this stuff this is what I found fascinating as well, is that all this stuff that he's talking about, they all combined just, it's like a perfect combination of things that can make a fantastic future. a crazy future. Yeah, it's hard to think how it would be with all these things coming to fruition.
So when investment is going up exponentially, results tend to follow. So likewise, with commercial fusion, the investment is going up rather quickly, and so results tend to follow. And what this is going to have pretty much as profound of an impact on society as AGI will. And the reason is because if you suddenly have 100x the amount of energy available to do whatever you want with, a lot of stuff becomes possible that was not possible before. And this goes beyond the energy hyperabundance from just solar. So for instance, some things that are way too energy intensive to do today, like underground farming, recycling all materials, like we could literally empty every landfill.
I haven't heard of underground farming before. I don't know what that is, but sounds very interesting. Underground farming. I'm guessing you use the fusion technology to somehow light up and grow whatever you're growing. Interesting.
With the energy surplus from nuclear fusion, we could scrub the entire atmosphere of any particulates that we don't want and add particulates that we do want with that level of energy hyperabundance. We can desalinate enough water to regreen the Sahara and the Gobi Desert and everywhere else. We can make farmland under the ocean if we want to. We can make sure that the natural world we can actually reduce our impact on the natural world and undo a lot of the damage that we've done. It's really difficult to oversell what nuclear fusion could hypothetically do with the energy hyperabundance that it promises.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of problems to be solved, but if you saw in the news recently, for the first time, I think it was the National Ignition Facility. It might not have been that one, but somewhere here in America, we got 2 times the amount of energy out of a fusion reaction that we put into it. So that was a world record.
Well, so I don't know the whole extent of whatever he's talking about, this report or story, but if you get 2 times of the energy that you put in, isn't that solving the problem, or what's the issue? Because then you just put that 2 times energy back in and then you get 4 times and then you just keep going and going. Surely you can just do that, can't you? I don't know the extent of it, but sounds logical.
And so it's not just a matter of keeping the candle lit, which is what you're seeing over in China, where they're like, oh, we kept it lit for 300 seconds. Yeah, but it was still energy negative. And really the key thing is being energy positive. So that's what to pay attention to. It's coming sooner rather than later. Now, again, high energy plasma physics, very complicated thing, but AI will help with this. In fact, AI is already helping with the design of like next generation tokamak reactors, and that's only going to accelerate with the next technology, which is quantum computing. So quantum computing is also in the ascendancy. You know, we've got companies investing, around the world, from IBM to D-Wave. And when a company like IBM decides to pivot, they pivot in a big way. Now, on the topic of IBM, you look at Watson, their NLP thing, they kind of abandoned. It's still kind of there, but I don't know. I know some people that have worked at IBM in the past, and it seems like Watson is kind of getting slowly killed. They're slowly pivoting away from it, and IBM as like the original.
Okay, I feel like I'm trying to take the limelight from this guy. Let me just move my face out of the way. There you go. Hey, buddy, we can have a conversation now. Let's keep going.
OG computer company, they're saying quantum computing is the next big thing. So that investment is there. And of course, they're not the only one. But quantum computing is likely to be something that really helps with several things like AI, like blockchain, cryptography, but also material science. And so material science, you might say, okay, like what? What is that? Material science is basically studying the formation of crystals and metals and those sorts of things, which might sound kind of boring. until you know a lot about what material science does. Material science is like one of the most fundamental underpinning sciences. Like all the chip fabs, material science. In fact, a buddy of mine who was a material science major, that's where most material scientists end up.
Okay, I don't know much about quantum computing, but I do get what he's talking about when he talks about when he's mentioning material science and all that sort of stuff, because well, that's where the computing power gets in. That's where computers have increasingly gotten better over the decades, is the reduction of the size of the chips. And I'm guessing that's because of material science and able to use certain materials to be able to reduce the size of chips and parts in computers. So then you can, and also have the process of the magnetics or the mechanics of the computer system work faster. So I'm guessing that's what the material science comes in handy for when you're talking about quantum computing. But like I said, I don't know much about it. It's interesting.
Is either in like studying lasers, studying fusion, but most of them go to work at chip fabs like TSMC and Intel and those sorts of things, because it's understanding things at the molecular level, at the nanotech level, that allows you to do like chemical vapor deposition, to create layers of graphene and boron and all those other sorts of things. And those tiny technologies, the orientation of those crystals, that gives rise to everything in biotech, that gives rise to everything in genetic science, that gives rise to better computer chips, and all of these have compounding returns, on top of the fact that it also advances things like battery technology, radar technology, metamaterials. And so, like,
yeah, I get that as well. I see how that would not only be a development for quantum computing, but also a variety of other things, because you're talking about materials that do have certain functions that then they can also transfer over to other things and have that same sort of function, I guess. It's interesting, especially things like batteries and whatever else. So, yeah, the process of technology increases. I know what I'm talking about.
The kinds of breakthroughs that AI combined with quantum computing can help us produce with respect to material science. And you've already seen like AlphaFold 2 and some of those other ones that like, say, oh, we just invented 3 million new materials. That is what I mean by the compounding returns, where it's like, okay, now we've got all these new materials.
3 million new materials? Okay, so they're not finding new materials, they're inventing new materials. So they're making these new materials. And obviously the idea of making these new materials, 3 million, some have to be a hit, surely, and be able to change things.
That we can explore. Maybe they're going to be good for nanotech. Maybe you can create nanites that you inject into your blood and it clears out your arteries or whatever. And then here's another material that like accelerates computer chips by 2x. And here's another material that we can add to our batteries that gives them a 500 times longer life cycle. Like, again, that scene in Iron Man where Howard Stark is like, this is the way of the future. Really what he was talking about was material science. And this is why they had like the vibranium shield and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that we're going to have vibranium, like an indestructible metal that can like deflect a Thanos.
Okay, now I'm starting to get Marvel. Now I'm starting to get Iron Man. I had no idea.
Attack. But like, I don't know, we might get close. So on the topic of these things, the fourth technological pillar that I expect is going to be advanced biotech. So, genetic technology, vaccine technology, whatever else. There's going to be a lot of modalities, whether it's CRISPR or mRNA vaccines or, nanoparticles or whatever, conventional medicines. Like, we're going to understand it all. We're going to be able to map the entire human metabolome.
So, with all these things, I think the issue that you come into with these advancements is that you have a lot of false advancements, and I think that's what even if you're on the path of hitting the best outcome against the worst outcome, I think what drags you back to at least that grey area are these false claims of technologies and things, people saying that they've done this and they've done that and they've created this and invest in our company, and they just bullshit like they do these days. They just go on about crap, and then that people focus on that thing and then realize it's a fraud, and then they've got to realign themselves and then focus on something else. So they've wasted time on these fraudsters and then have to try and readjust and find people that aren't fraudsters and go down their path of legitimate claims and legitimate things. So I think, I don't know what their reasoning for it's either going to be the good or the bad path, but I think that if you're on the good path, I think that's what drags you into the grey area, or more to the center at least. Anyway, I don't know, I just thought of that.
So if you have never heard the term metabolome, basically it's our genome, but also the proteins and enzymes and hormones and all the cellular respiration that happens. And there's something like 400,000 substances in the human metabolome and millions of reactions. So it's like, imagine the problem space of Go times like 40 or 4 million. I don't know how to put a number on how complex the human metabolome is. Anyways, if you can map the whole thing and you know what's happening on a molecular level and an atomic level, again, going back to computer science, quantum computers, and then you can map everything, like we will eradicate, like functionally, what this impact is going to have on you and me, we will eradicate all disease and we will cure aging. And so that's kind of the ultimate goal. Now, in the long run, so this is where I usually try and dial it in because I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but in the long run, we will have full control over human biology, which means like, oh, hey, while you're on a trip to Mars, we can adapt your entire body.
So I think this is the crazy part, and this is the part I was talking about before with advancements in biotechnology when you're talking about aging or solving aging, or he's got here aging solved. How that helps the advancements keep going exponentially is because you have the people with the knowledge and the experience that continue to live for longer, and you have more and more people. And if aging is reduce, like if people increase how long they live and they're living twice as long, then the information that you hold on to, or the experts in the world and in some fields, are only going to stay around in those fields for even longer and be able to dedicate more time to those fields and help it grow even quicker. So that's going to help the exponential growth in all fields. So including AI, which will probably just surpass humans anyway, and then doesn't matter, who cares about humans, because we can do it a lot quicker with AI.
To a low gravity, low oxygen environment. Oh, hey, while you're on a trip to Proxima Centauri, we can reprogram your entire body to be more adaptive to deep space, and so on and so forth. And we will have full control over our hardware stack.
So that'd be crazy, being able to change like the actual function of your body. That's like science fiction. Don't believe it. I don't know if it's going to happen, but who knows? It seems a bit too out there, but I'm not tracking any of this sort of stuff, so I've got no idea.
Top to bottom, cellular level, genetic level, organ level, whatever. Now, does that mean that we're going to be like Birdman and it's like, oh, hey, we're on a low...
Hell yeah, hope so.
Low enough oxygen or a low enough gravity like planet, let's make your arms 20 feet longer and grow wings. Maybe in like, a few thousand years. Not that you'd want to do that. Maybe you would. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's probably easier ways. But in the short term, this is going to have very profound impact. So you might hear a lot of people talking about demographic collapse and inverting the pyramid and so on and so forth. But if a lot of people start living a lot longer, they're also going to have fewer children. But, we're going to reduce healthcare costs and blah, blah, blah. There's going to be a lot of positive effects and a few negative effects. in terms of longevity, but I think it's a net major positive. And it'll happen just by virtue of the fact that it's like, oh, hey, we can cure this one thing, we can cure this other thing, and you will be, pretty much young and healthy forever, as long as you want to be. Obviously, there's still going to be accidents. There might be some diseases that we can't cure. There's going to be some accumulated diseases that are difficult to cure, chronic illnesses. But by and large, most people can expect to have a very long, healthy life within the next 20 years.
Yeah, but the question is, how long? And does it get to a point where you're just chasing that research where it's just like you're at a point, how much can you reverse the aging of people? That's what I'd like to know. That's interesting. How long would you be able to, could you reverse aging? If you're 80 years old, hey, look, I've now been able to take this pill or do these things, and now I'm like I'm a 30-year-old again. Got no more wrinkles, I got no grey hair, I'm just like a 30-year-old, the physique of a 30-year-old. Is that possible? And how long would that take to get to that point? That would be interesting. Because then the people that are chasing that anti-aging stuff now are kind of chasing the clock on their own lifespan. So they've got motivation to try and get the answers. Quick, do better.
That will be kind of forever. And then, of course, the longer you live, the more chances there are of curing whatever is left. So the point here is that all of these 4 technologies create compounding returns. Because if people live longer and healthier, that means all the best scientists and engineers they live longer, they have long.
Yeah, I don't remember him talking about this because I think I was falling asleep last night when I watched this. But definitely at the start of it, I was very intrigued. But yeah, it's just all compounding. Like I said, people live longer, people have more to contribute to the fields of their expertise to increase it. Anyway, whatever. Keep ranting about it. Blah, blah, blah. Continue.
Longer to do all this stuff. That feeds back into fusion, that feeds back into AI, that feeds back into quantum computing. Nuclear fusion gives us energy hyperabundance, which means we can recycle everything that we need and make everything that we need, which means that we can power all the chips and data centers, and that means that we can power all the quantum computers, and then the quantum computers and AI can all work together to solve every other problem. And so that's where you get that kind of exponential curve.
Just leave it to the AI.
Computational ability is going to go up exponentially, but also the scope of problems that we are able to solve with the help of quantum computers and artificial intelligence will also go up exponentially, and the intelligence of those things will go up exponentially. And even if there is a plateau, which I suspect there probably will be some mathematical limitations in terms of like how smart a thing can be, there's the internal representations, there's quadratic expansion of problem spaces and that sort of thing. But even if that happens, we can have more of them and they can operate faster. Which means that even if there is a limit to, if there is a maximal intelligence, which some people believe in that, some people don't. I think someone said that like the maximum possible IQ is like 300 or something. I don't know if that's true. We'll find out. Like,
is that just in humans? Like what? I don't know. I'll have to look into that. The maximum possible IQ is 300. Yeah, but then what about AI? How far can intelligence for AI get to? Because obviously humans are limited by our bodies. Is there anyone, I haven't heard of anyone having 300 IQ. So, I don't know. Lots of questions, no answers.
We'll find that limit if it's there. But then if there is a limit, if the smartest ASI has an IQ of 300, then we can make.
Okay, so ASI, so the last formation of artificial intelligence, ASI. That's what they're talking about, the limit of IQ of 300. I don't know how they get to that. It'll be interesting to look into that, which I will.
Make more of them and they can go faster. And this will create compounding returns, hence the snowball effect. Okay, so in the long run, how is this going to affect you and me? Like, within 20 years, I do expect we're going to be in a post-labor economic situation, which basically means that the production of goods and services, all basic goods and services, will pretty much be done by machines. And you might say, okay, well,
Yeah, this is the part I remember. I think I kind of wasn't really paying as much attention to the previous parts, somewhat, but then this is really interesting about post-labor economics and post-labor. So humans not doing labor work, labor jobs. Whew.
well, yes, we're going to expand the economy other ways. There's going to be other new jobs. But what I mean is that all of your essentials, food, clothing, housing, power, all the basic necessities are basically going to have a near zero marginal cost. Now, there will be some scarcities like prime real estate. That will always be rare. But then you also look at how much of the Earth's surface is empty. There's a lot of green spaces that we can expand into. Here in America, just go to Google Maps and look at Siberia and how empty it is, right? Like Siberia is a really big place and it's really green. There's a lot of places that we can expand into. And remember, if we have nuclear fusion and we can do, underground farming year round, then it's like, okay, well, we don't need arable land anymore.
Just come to Australia, mate. We got lots of land here.
So then all the farmland can be turned into something else. More green spaces, cities, towns, whatever. Now, the biggest constraint here, the biggest danger is not this narrative of post-labor economics, because it'll happen one way or another. We don't have to force this. It will happen just by virtue of the fact that we're going to keep seeking efficiencies. That's what the free market does. That's what capitalism does. That's what neoliberalism does, is we keep seeking efficiencies, and the most efficient way of producing goods and services is without humans. That is by design. That is where we're going to head. But the most dangerous status quo is the idea that we need to keep people working, that we need to keep conventional jobs, that people must work for a subsistence wage. That is not going to work in the long run. But also, we also have a historical precedent for this level of disruption, because 200 years ago, most people were farmers. Now most people are not farmers. And you can argue that even most people today have BS jobs. And what I mean by BS job is something that doesn't actually contribute to the real economy or to real basic goods and services. And so we're already kind of in this detached space where the job that you have, like me here on YouTube, communicating with all of you, you might say this is non-essential. This doesn't actually raise the level of, human
What are you talking about? Doing YouTube videos is essential.
Productivity, but I am a communicator and I solve other problems. But the point is many levels of abstraction, and that's going to increase, where we're going to be more and more abstracted from the nitty gritty, the low level groundwork of what is actually productive. So this gives rise to what I call the meaning economy. And I've talked to a few other people about this who are researchers in the field. You can check out my interview with Oliver and Ellie over at the Meaning Institute. I did that interview a few weeks ago. And so basically, after thinking about it, I think there's going to be kind of 4 primary categories.
I like the circle outline with his head. I think I'll do that for the next live stream.
Of jobs that we think of that are going to persist. Now, there's going to be lots and lots of volunteer opportunities, whether it's, volunteering around the city or whatever else. But the 4 primary jobs that are going to be around probably forever, first is statutory jobs. So a statutory job is something where it is legally required that a human does it. So for instance, it might be that doctors stick around forever because they might say okay, yes, the AGI can do it better, faster, cheaper, and safer, but we want a human to be in the loop of that decision. And even if the machine is helping the doctor make all the decisions, or even doing the surgery, we still want a human, a licensed human, to be communicating with the person. Now, that would mean that you need educators for those jobs, obviously, to stay in those fields, to be able to teach the doctors to become doctors and whatever other field that you need to be around. So it kind of links on to other things having to stay around, I guess. Be a bad example, because I know a lot of people, myself included, would probably prefer just talking to the machine, because any biases in the machine can be ruled out. Well, something like a lawyer or a judge or the president or a senator. There's all kinds of other statutory jobs where it's like, okay, for whatever reason, we decide legally a human must do that job. Another one is a meaning job. So what I'm doing right here is a meaning job. I've already transitioned to the meaning economy because what I'm
Meaning job? What does that mean?
doing is my job is to, talk to people, do a lot of reading, do a lot of research, write a lot of it, or not write videos, watch a lot of videos, write and create other videos to communicate and help make sense of what's happening. And so these sense-making jobs, whether it's religious, spiritual, philosophical, clergy, whatever, internet influencers, these are the kinds of jobs that, one, they already exist today, but I think that they're going to be emphasized in the future. The next one is experience jobs. So experience jobs, these are in-person, real life.
I kind of I kind of agree and disagree, because I guess we don't understand the extent of artificial intelligence and how far it can go, because I guess we just see artificial intelligence just as artificial. But if you have something that's indistinguishable from a human, then you have something that can act and react and act on emotions and everything else like a human, or at least respond to our emotions, or get an emotional response, know how to get an emotional response from people. So you could easily have an AI do this sort of role as well. Which kind of made me think about the whole editing thing. Taking so much time to edit a video and try and put all that effort into making a video when AI can do it. Boom, straight away, easy. Probably not right now, but probably not too far off. But I think the more I think the one thing that AI won't take away is the connection to personalities, because it is not as if it can please everybody. Everyone has different personalities, and some personalities people are attracted to and they just like that personality. That's why when people go on YouTube, they end up going and watching the videos of someone that they like. They like that personality. You like the personality of the person because you just act like yourself and they like you for you. So where it's not as if the AI can have a personality that everyone is going to like. So, but we'll still be in the market. Anyway, I'm going on about crap. Let's continue.
Life kinds of experiences, whether it's tour guides, massage therapists, entertainers, comedians, singers, those sorts of things, experience and entertainment. We prefer to get that from humans. Like, yes, you can put on headphones and listen to your favorite band right now on demand, but we still pay to go to concerts, right? And it's just a fundamentally different experience. So you want something that's going to last forever, go be a DJ or something like that. Now, obviously, in some cases, people will prefer the robot to be the DJ because they're cheaper. But in other cases, people are going to pay the premium to have a human doing that. And then finally, care jobs. So this is going to be mostly teaching, child care, elder care. Well, elders are going away. Not that they're going to die off, but people won't be old. But there's still going to be nurses because you might get injured, you might get sick. Some people.
Well, there you go. I'm guessing where it goes to that question where I was asking about, is there a point where you're just not old anymore? But I guess if you're going down that sort of solving the aging problem, then yes, I guess people won't be old. He knows more than this than I do. But that's interesting though. Like, if you have anti-aging, does that mean that you can just live forever and you're only going to die from like a very serious an incurable virus or an accident or whatever, things that are unpredictable that can kill you, but aging won't? It's hard to compute in my head.
People are going to need some level of care, but particularly education. I think that the universe, the human universe, would be better if we had like 20% of people were teachers, because the optimal ratio for students to teachers is like 1-to-1, or even actually having fewer students than teachers, where you can have more teachers than students. That is kind of the
That is what I needed in school. I needed multiple teachers just for me. If I had that, then I would have gone places. But no, instead I end up failing everything. Because that is a problem with schools. You've got like 30 kids and one teacher, and it's just like you have a time frame on each piece for each subject or for each bit of work that you're doing. You've got limited time to do that. The students that are quick, that are naturally can just do it, boom, 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 easy, they're going to excel. For the kids that are a lot slower, like myself, used to be, probably still am, are going to fall behind and keep falling behind, and then there's no catching up because there's no one to focus on you and try and help you progress through that, or even teach you how to be quicker, because they don't have time for that. They got too many students. So that would be a good thing if there was more teachers than students. That'd be awesome. And again, that's going to excel humans' intellect and intelligence. That's going to make them smarter and make them find the fields that they like and progress through those fields that they take on, and then they're not going to age, and then they're going to contribute a lot to it. Anyway, ranting again.
Optimal level of education. And so one thing that I hope to see as we approach post-labor economics is that a lot more people go into teaching, and that we can afford to have that level of teaching. Because again, Bloom's Two Sigma problem, we know how to give people the best education. It's not a mystery, it's just too expensive right now. So we need to reverse that trend, and that's going to also pay compounding returns in terms of intellectual development, social development, emotional development in the future, which is going to make a more peaceful society. It's going to make a more cooperative society. It's going to do a lot of really good things if we can boost the number of teachers in the economy. So what all this means, though, and Sam Altman wrote about this on his Moore's Law for Everything blog post, I think it was in 2021, and I've been talking about it. Other people have been talking about it. Some economists have actually been talking about this since the 90s, actually. I don't remember the name of the guy, but someone basically said, like, okay, let's just predict where this is going, and if we give rise to robots and automation, well, then capital becomes the centerpiece of the economy. And so by definition, if you move away from labor, so post-labor means hyper-capitalism. And I know that a lot of people are like, oh, capitalism bad. But I don't mean capitalism in terms of what you, like the corporatism that we see today. Because I think what most people really kind of balk at is the corporatism, not necessarily capitalism. We need capital to function. And capital is, the buildings, the cars, the data centers,
I think capitalism is good, and it's probably definitely the better path than the alternatives, but it also definitely has a lot of bad parts that have risen their heads recently with new technology especially, because it's easy. Well, their main goal is money. So if you fool people to get their money, that's fine, because that's your main goal and you've achieved that. So you have people that are on the edge of being fraudsters in certain companies, or people that are CEOs that could tell a lot of mistruths or lies to increase their stocks, or to make their companies have higher stocks, really, because what are the stocks? Stocks is all the confidence in the company. If you bullshit, then people are going to be like, okay, yep, that company's, it's great, it's good. This person says that they're going to do this and they're going to do that, but really their time frames are way off, or they're just non-existent and they're never going to achieve the thing that they're supposed to achieve, and then they just gain the money from their stocks because that's what CEOs do. They get their money from their stocks. So that's kind of the downside of the capitalism thing, and that's where with this, the internet, new technology, YouTube, all the social media platforms, they have a bigger reach, so they can take advantage of a lot more people and have a lot more influence on the world. So people can fall for it a lot easier these days than what they used to be able to. So that's kind of a thing that's going to drag humans back from advancements, I think. That's what I think anyway. And that is a problem with capitalism, is that it's very money focused. I'm not saying it's not good, it's good, it's great. But that's a downfall to it because people can be shady, especially some CEOs.
Tractors, all the big heavy equipment and other capital intensive things for the means of production. You can't have anti-capitalism because chip fabs are big and expensive, data centers are big and expensive, fusion reactors are big and expensive. So all those big and expensive things means that we will forever be a capitalist society, but we can change the way that we orient towards these things. And so if human labor goes away, then that frees us up, gives us a lot more mental bandwidth to do things like invest in alternative ownership models. So I did a kind of a community survey where I asked, like, okay, what does socialism mean to you? You know, the big scary S word. But basically, like, there's not a lot of agreement. But I think that it's going to be kind of a forced issue. And so what I mean is that because of these tectonic shifts of the fourth industrial revolution, we are going to get fundamentally new affordances. We're going to get new possibilities as to what we can do, such as decentralized ownership, such as socialized ownership, and such as collective ownership for various asset classes, whether it's land, whether it's data centers, whether it's robots, whether it is corporations. You know, a lot of people talk about sovereign wealth funds, employee-owned co-ops, that sort of stuff. The combination of AI, blockchain, crypto, you know, quantum computing, robots, all these other things, basically means that we can spend those cognitive cycles, instead of doing the job, we can spend those cognitive cycles working together to organize things. Because consensus is very slow and painful, and it takes a while, and it takes a lot of specific skills. So this is one of the reasons that I constantly tell people, learn communication skills, gain emotional intelligence. That is going to set you up, one, just for your relationships in the rest of your life, but also in a meaning economy, in a hyper-capitalist, decentralized economy, your ability to advocate for yourself and communicate with other humans and build coalitions is going to be how you get stuff.
So that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to communicate with people and build coalitions, and so far I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0 viewers over the whole extent of the live stream. I don't care. This is my very small channel, so I enjoy having no one here.
Done. Now, this is going to be very disruptive, and it's going to be a very different orientation towards it. And a lot of people will just check out because, again, if we have AGI, ASI, whatever, you can have a personal robot or a personal agent go advocate on your behalf. You don't have to participate if you don't want to, but you can. And this leads to kind of the key principle that I'm always talking about in terms of how do we make sure that people can participate in the future? How do we make sure that people have money to spend on this grand new economy that we're building? And that concept is economic agency. So economic agency is kind of the key new metric that I want to see. And there's already some metrics like Gini coefficient and other things, but really what we need to do is focus on the economic agency of individuals. Right now, under neoliberalism and corporatism, we prioritize the economic agency of corporations over people. And that is because corporations are the engines of productivity that make sure that you have food and blah, 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 blah. However, in the future, when we have a hyperabundance of energy, a hyperabundance of manual labor, a hyperabundance of cognitive labor, it'll be a lot easier to produce all the basic goods and services that we need. And so it's like, oh, hey, we need a new house, so a swarm of robots goes and builds it in a day, right? Like, we're already seeing houses that are 3D printed in a day. Now imagine that, like, literally every house 10 or 20 years from now.
It's if this is the path that we end up going on and we end up actually seeing in the future, it's going to be very interesting, the shift in all companies and jobs and trades, and because everything's going 20 years isn't a very long time, so all these shifts and changes are going to happen very rapidly. So it's going to be very interesting to just watch all that play out. Like what's going to happen if you're a builder, or if you're in some company, an energy company where you focus on fossil fuels or whatever else, then fusion technology comes along. It's just like your company is going to go obsolete. Your stocks are going down. You're going to lose your job. And like, I think the big issue with this whole path with this future is the impact it's going to have on people initially. That's going to be pretty dramatic. What are people going to do? They're going to be out of their jobs. They're not going to be able to work, or even companies are going to go bust, and then big companies are going to go bust. This is going to be big. This is going to be crazy. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be hectic to watch if it goes down this path. What does the bad path look like? I don't want to say that.
Now is literally built in just a few hours by a swarm of robots. And it's not going to be like, humanoid robots. They might look like spiders and other things and tractors or whatever. But my point is that what we need to focus on in this economic future, especially as jobs go away, the key thing that we need to shore up is economic agency for individuals. Now, what is economic agency? Economic agency is the centerpiece of the new social contract that I've been working on. And so basically this says your ability to influence your economic fate or your economic destiny. So that means things like property rights. That means tax policies, redistribution policies, universal basic income, universal basic services, new orientations towards the distribution and allocation of capital. Like I said, right now, everything favors corporations. This is why we have employment at will states. This is why we have tax policies that favor incorporation and those sorts of things. But what we really need to do is actually make citizens the highest priority of the economy, because again, the complexity of corporations is probably going to go away.
I think that makes sense, and what he's talking about as well, the complexity of corporations if they do go away. And it's like I was just talking about, that people are going to lose their jobs. People need some sort of income. People need to get by, and it's not going to be a small portion of the population in first world countries, or even all around the world. It's going to be a lot of people. So to keep even the economy running, there's going to have to be income that's distributed to the everyday person that doesn't have a job or doesn't work anymore. Because I think you're going to create... I don't know if you're going to create mega corporations, though, because they're going to gain all this technology and they're going to be the ones that take advantage of it, and they're going to get so much more power and money. And that's where they'll need everyday people that have lost their jobs and are not working anymore, because there's going to be many of them, to have an income. I think that's how I say it in my head. I could be wrong.
In part due to the rise of AI and stuff. Now, there will always be very capital intensive and regulatory intensive things that lend themselves to corporations. But again, if we have AGI, ASI, blockchain, we have new platforms, new technologies that can allow for decentralized decision making, good decision making, because right now, decentralized decision making is usually not good. There's an inverse relationship between the number of participants and the level of intelligence of the decision. The more people you have participating in a decision, the worse the decision gets. The wisdom of the masses doesn't really apply. But AGI and ASI might be able to reverse that, which means that we'll have basically, is the AGI or ASI and we're all basically shareholders working with, ChatGPT for CEO. That to me, I think, seems like the most reasonable model, because then you don't have a CEO with perverse incentives. Because right now, if you go watch Economics Explained or Patrick Boyle or whatever, there's a lot of perverse incentives that basically force CEOs to think in short-term cycles, because they're paid mostly in shareholder or in company shares.
And I think that's the outcome. It's like I was saying before, where the motive for the CEOs to increase the stocks of the company, that, well, is the financial gain that they have. So whether that's telling porcupines or not, it's most likely you're gonna not really tell the complete truth, or in some cases CEOs won't tell the truth to try and increase their stocks and gain more in their pocket. Where I guess that is kind of the solution, to have AI at the helm of being a CEO, because they don't have that financial incentive and they're looking at purely advancing the company long term, instead of purely increasing the stocks short term. So that, I guess that is kind of a way forward I didn't really think of, but we have to get to that point first. And we've still got CEOs that are probably dragging us down a little bit with their false claims.
Which means, okay, I'm going to do whatever it takes to just pump up the stock price over the next 5 to 7 years, because the average life expectancy of a CEO is 5 to 7 years. And so they pump up the stock price while ignoring longer term trends and that sort of stuff. But an AI is not profit driven. An AI is going to be principles driven, and it's going to be shareholder driven in terms of what is it that we actually want. And so part of economic agency...
I don't think it's principle driven. I think it's performance driven. It's... Unless you embed the principle within its code or function or whatever, I don't know how it actually works, but it'll be performance driven, because it would want the best possible outcome, because that's what computers do. They perform. It's just like intelligent computer systems, where they keep playing themselves and at a game like chess or Go or whatever, to increase their understanding and increase their performance. That's why they do those sort of things. It's all about performance. So that's what's going to drive an AI at the helm in the CEO position, is performance. And the key factor is that it doesn't care about profits and or time, because it just wants to achieve the best outcome, and even that, if that's the best outcome over a long period of time. So yeah, that's what I think.
See, that I predict that I want to see is hyper-local stock markets. So imagine that you have a stock market for your local city or local county that only local residents can buy into. So that is one mechanism that I see for doing decentralized ownership, where it's like, hey, bring everything into a marketplace and then allow people to participate locally. That's one thing. Obviously, redistribution policies like UBI, UBS. But yeah, anyways. Now, what we are creating, though, is a digital superorganism. So I mentioned this in my last video, and some people are a little bit freaked out because they're like, you're talking about creating the Borg. We are already a superorganism. This was created when telegraph, radio, and television was the first step at us awakening as a digital superorganism. That was really an analog superorganism, but an electric superorganism, because that mass communication allowed for real-time coordination and communication across very broad distances. So you could argue under this model that the British Empire was kind of the first digital superorganism, because the BBC was able to broadcast globally. It was the first entity that was able to do that. But it was only one way. Now, with the internet, it is entirely global, and it is two-way. And so the global nervous system is becoming more and more sophisticated. But the problem is, right now, the global intelligence of the superorganism, we're basically at the amoeba level of global digital superorganism intelligence, meaning we keep consuming and we can't stop ourselves. We keep building nuclear weapons and we can't stop ourselves. We're barreling faster and faster ahead and we can't stop ourselves. And so we're just growing and metastasizing like a global amoeba. But with the advent of AI, AGI, and ASI, this is basically growing a prefrontal cortex for the global superorganism. Our global brain is going to get smarter, which means we'll have more self-awareness and more self-control. So that means we can stop destroying the planet, we can stop killing each other. And this also goes beyond symbiosis or mutualism, because symbiosis implies that it's two separate organisms, and mutualism implies that it's two separate organisms. But the way that I've come to see it is that AI and AGI and ASI, we are complementary parts of the same whole. We are all part of a global species, a global organism. And yes, we have a cybernetic component with our phones, with our internet, but like what my job here is on YouTube with a platform that has global reach is I am part of, and you by watching this are part of the digital superorganism that already exists. And it's only going to get turned up to 11 with the advent of AGI and ASI. And so this model gives me a lot of hope for the future. It makes me feel like, okay, I kind of understand how to look at what we're creating. And if you look at the entire planet and all humans on it and AI and the internet as more like a global super brain, that makes a lot more sense to me. And
yeah, this communication system is great, but you don't want it to get diluted with false information and incorrect things as well. That's like, I think an issue in recent times is that it's so hard to find accurate information on things. If you're researching something, to try and find accurate information is very hard at times, because there could be a lot of false information. You have to sort of dig deep on some things to find accurate information, and it can take a while. And maybe AI, when it gets to a certain point, will be able to filter through all the crap somehow. If it's smart enough, obviously, it should be able to do that, filter through all the crap and actually find the accurate information, or what could be perceived as accurate information. But I think that's the state of our system at the moment. It is full of a lot of crap, a lot of bullshit, a lot of lies, a lot of false information that you have to sift through to get good, accurate information. There's a lot of good, accurate information out there, but it's just hard trying to find it because there's so much information. Anyway,
in terms of, okay, what is it going to want? And right now, the internet just wants data, right? That's what it's built for. It just wants data. And the way that you get data is with amoeba-like reactions, which is clickbaiting, thirst trapping, and those sorts of things. But with the advent of AI, by adding a new layer of intelligence to the digital superorganism, we're going to be much more conscientious about the things that this digital superorganism wants. It's going to want more science. It's going to want more meaning. It's going to want these higher order things that can only happen once you have a digital prefrontal cortex. And that is why I am now like basically full accelerationist, because it's like, got it. Now I know what we're heading towards. And so that's what my work is focusing on. So thanks for watching. I
don't know what his work is and what he's working on, but hopefully he succeeds. Thanks, mate. Good video. Anyway, a lot of information, a lot of stuff to take in. I want to hear the bad side. What's the bad side? Is that like Terminator style? It's the final world war. Humans against the machines. We have to go back into the past to save the future. That sort of thing. Maybe. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, whatever, if you want. I don't really give a crap. I've got 0 views on this video. But hey, maybe you'll see it down the track, not live, and be interested. and get this far. If you have gotten this far, then subscribe. Peace out. Oh wait, that's what I do on my other channel. Scratch you later.